The neon lights of Harbor Diner flickered against the windows as 28-year-old Emma Collins finished her double shift. Her brown ponytail was slightly disheveled after 14 hours of serving customers and cleaning tables. The late-night crowd had finally thinned out, leaving only the soft hum of the refrigerators and the distant sound of traffic from the street outside. Emma had been working at Harbor Diner for 3 years, ever since she moved to the city to pursue her dream of becoming a nurse. The job paid just enough to cover her tiny studio apartment and community college tuition. But lately, even that modest income was being stretched beyond its limits. Her grandmother's medical bills had been piling up, and Emma had been sending most of her paycheck home to help with the treatments that Medicare did not cover. Tonight, like many nights recently, Emma had not eaten during her shift. The employee meal that came with her job was often the only real food she had each day. But she had given her dinner to a co-worker whose young son had shown up hungry at the restaurant. Emma knew what it felt like to be a child watching a parent struggle, and she could not let little Noah go without food, even if it meant she would go to bed with an empty stomach. As Emma wiped down the last table and prepared to lock up, she noticed a man sitting at the counter who seemed to have appeared from nowhere. He was perhaps in his early 30s, with shoulder-length dark hair and worn clothes that suggested he had been traveling or living rough. His face showed the kind of exhaustion that comes from more than just physical tiredness. "I'm sorry, sir," Emma said gently, "but we're actually closed for the night. The kitchen has been shut down for over an hour." The man looked up at her with eyes that held a mixture of desperation and embarrassment. "I understand. I was just hoping maybe you had something left over. I haven't eaten in 2 days, and I've been walking for hours trying to find a place that was still open." Emma felt her heart clench with recognition. She knew exactly what that kind of hunger felt like, the way it made your hands shake and your thoughts become fuzzy. She looked at this stranger and saw herself reflected in his desperate situation. "What's your name?" Emma asked, setting down her cleaning cloth. "Michael," he replied quietly. "I'm not asking for charity. I can work for food or pay you back when I get back on my feet." Emma studied Michael's face and saw the kind of pride that comes from someone who has fallen on hard times but has not given up their dignity. She made a decision that would change both their lives forever. "Michael, wait here just a moment," Emma said, disappearing into the kitchen. She returned a few minutes later carrying a plate with 2 perfectly prepared burgers, fresh lettuce and tomatoes, and a side of crispy fries. "This is for you," Emma said, setting the plate in front of him. "And please don't worry about paying me back. Sometimes we all need a little help." Michael stared at the food as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. "I can't take this from you. This looks like it was meant for someone else." Emma sat down across from him at the counter, her own stomach growling quietly. "Michael, I believe that when we have the ability to help someone, we should do it without expecting anything in return. Please eat." As Michael ate with the careful appreciation of someone who had been truly hungry, he and Emma began to talk. She learned that he was a former software engineer who had lost his job when his company went bankrupt. Unable to find work in his field and too proud to ask his family for help, he had been living in his car until it was repossessed 3 weeks earlier. "I had everything figured out," Michael said between bites. "Good job, nice apartment, plans for the future. Then one day it was all gone, and I found out how quickly you can go from having a comfortable life to having nothing at all." Emma nodded with understanding. "I think most of us are closer to that edge than we like to admit. Life can change very quickly, and sometimes the only thing that stands between us and disaster is the kindness of other people." Michael looked at her with curiosity. "You talk like someone who has experienced this kind of struggle yourself." Emma smiled sadly. "I work 2 jobs to pay for nursing school and help my grandmother with her medical expenses. Some days I'm not sure how I'm going to make it all work, but I keep believing that things will get better if I don't give up." When Michael finished eating, he tried once more to insist on paying Emma back, but she refused. "Michael, the only thing I ask is that someday when you're back on your feet, you help someone else who needs it. That's how kindness multiplies in the world." Michael nodded solemnly. "I promise you, Emma, I will never forget what you've done for me tonight." 3 months later, Emma was studying for her nursing board exams when she received a phone call that would change her life forever. "Miss Collins, This is Rachel Green from the Harper Foundation. We have received an application for a full scholarship to complete your nursing degree along with a stipend for living expenses. The application was submitted on your behalf by someone who wishes to remain anonymous. Emma felt her knees go weak. I don't understand. I never applied for a scholarship from your foundation. The application includes detailed information about your academic performance, your work history, and your dedication to helping others. The anonymous donor was very specific that you exemplify the kind of character and commitment that the foundation seeks to support. 2 weeks later, Emma received another call, this time offering her a paid internship at the city's most prestigious hospital with the guarantee of a full-time position upon graduation. Again, the opportunity had been arranged by an anonymous benefactor. It wasn't until 6 months later at her nursing school graduation ceremony that Emma discovered the identity of her mysterious supporter. As she walked across the stage to receive her diploma, she saw a familiar face in the audience that made her stop in her tracks. Michael sat in the third row, no longer the desperate, hungry man she had met at the diner. He wore a well-tailored suit and had the confident bearing of someone who had reclaimed his place in the world. When their eyes met, he smiled and gave her a small wave. After the ceremony, Michael approached Emma with a bouquet of flowers and tears in his eyes. "Congratulations, Nurse Collins," he said warmly. "I told you I would never forget your kindness." Emma stared at him in amazement. "Michael, you look so different, and you were the anonymous donor." Michael nodded. After that night at the diner, I was able to get back on my feet. I started a new software company that develops applications for healthcare systems. The business grew faster than I ever imagined, and I became more successful than I'd ever been in my previous job. But Michael, the scholarship, the job opportunities, that must have cost a fortune. Michael's expression grew serious. "Emma, that night when you gave me your last meal, you didn't just feed my body. You restored my faith in humanity. You reminded me that there are still people in the world who care about others more than themselves." When I became successful again, I realized that money means nothing if you don't use it to help others. Investing in your education and career was not charity, Emma. It was recognition of the incredible nurse and human being you were always meant to become. 5 years later, Emma had become head nurse in the pediatric cardiac unit at Children's Hospital, a position that allowed her to save young lives every day. Michael's software company had grown into a major corporation that specialized in healthcare technology, and he had established a foundation that provided scholarships for students from low-income backgrounds who demonstrated exceptional character. They had remained close friends, bonded by that night at the diner when both their lives had been at crossroads. Michael often said that Emma's act of kindness had not just fed him for one evening, but had nourished his soul in a way that enabled all his future success. At the annual gala for Michael's foundation, Emma was ushered in as the keynote speaker. As she stood before an audience of donors and scholarship recipients, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. 5 years ago, Emma began, I was a struggling waitress who gave her last meal to a hungry stranger. I thought I was just helping someone get through a difficult night. What I learned is that when we give freely to others, especially when we have little to give, we create ripples of kindness that spread far beyond what we can imagine. She looked out at Michael, who was sitting at the head table with tears of pride in his eyes. That night taught me that we are all connected by our shared humanity. When we lift others up, we lift ourselves up as well. When we invest in someone else's dreams, we often discover that we are building our own future in ways we never expected. After the gala, as Emma and Michael walked through the hospital halls where she now worked, they passed the pediatric ward where children were sleeping peacefully, many of them alive because of the medical technology that Michael's company had developed and the expert nursing care that Emma provided. "You know," Michael said as they watched a young patient through the window, "that hungry stranger you fed at the diner wasn't the only person whose life you saved that night." Emma looked at him with curiosity. "What do you mean?" Michael smiled, his expression filled with gratitude and wonder. "You saved me too, Emma. Not just from hunger, but from losing faith in the goodness of people. Your kindness reminded me who I wanted to be, and it gave me the strength to rebuild my life in a way that could make a difference." As they stood together in the quiet hospital corridor, surrounded by the evidence of lives being saved and healed, Emma understood that sometimes the most important meals we share are not the ones that fill our stomachs, but the ones that nourish our souls and remind us of our capacity to care for one another. The plate of food she had given to a stranger on a difficult night had indeed been her last meal at the time, but had also been the first meal of a friendship that would feed both their spirits for the rest of their lives and touch countless other lives through the kindness they continue to share with the world. If you like the story, please subscribe to the channel and like the video.